Gonna kick it up in the Western Conference with the second round playoff matchup. You got the second seeded Los Angeles Clippers going against the third seeded Denver Nuggets. Both of these parties, they've had some trouble in the first round of the playoffs. I had my prediction was the Clippers were going to go beat the Mavericks in 5 games. Shout out to Luka Doncic, who's a beast out there. Especially we saw that game winner step back on the Clippers when it came down to it. But KP was hurt the last 3 games of that series. He was ejected one of the games, the game 1, and the rest were kind of biased. So that could have been 7 games. We could have seen the Mavericks win that series. Who knows? But it is what it is. I had the Nuggets, my prediction. I thought the Nuggets were going to beat the Jazz in 5 games. They actually overcame a 3-1 deficit, and let alone they won in 7 games. So crazy for both parties. I didn't expect the first round series to be the way they were, but hey, we got the Nuggets, we got the Clippers. I think this is going to be somewhat of an interesting series. I don't think you really have to go too much in depth when it comes down to it. Listen, the Clippers were exposed to a few things in the first round, and let's address those things. Number 1, they're a team, they can blow a lead, and they can bounce back. Number 2, they're not mentally stable, and they're not mentally tough. And you can get in their heads. You can change the rhythm, you can change the flow of the game, and the momentum. Number 3, if you and your bigs take it inside, you can defeat the Los Angeles Clippers when it comes down to it. And that's what the Mavericks did. They exposed them. The Denver Nuggets can really take some of these pieces and add them onto their game plan and scouting. The X factor for the Denver Nuggets is definitely going to have to be Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. Now, for Michael Porter Jr., I don't expect too much for him this series. I think he'll probably give you around 13 points a game because you're going to have Kawhi Leonard on him, let alone or Paul George. And he's a young stud. He doesn't have the playoff experience. This is deeper in the playoffs with these superstars. I think he's going to be very inconsistent in a couple of these games. Jamal Murray was eating out there against the Utah Jazz, giving you 40 points a game, 50 points a game. Even though Patrick Beverley wasn't locking up Luka Doncic the way we expected him to be, Jamal Murray is different. Jamal Murray is not the same breed as a Luka Doncic. Now he's getting up there to be a future All-Star level. But I foresee with the healthy Patrick Beverley and the crew, they can be able to shut down Jamal Murray a couple of these games. And, kudos to him. We finally see him blossom into an all-star player. We never really expected too much of him for this time period against the Jazz, but the Clippers are a different animal. I think the Clippers are definitely going to crank it up this series when it comes down to it because they know what happens with the Dallas Mavericks. And with the Denver Nuggets, they have a couple ways they can fiddle with them. Their Nuggets are a team. They don't really have one person scoring all the time. It's an offensive flow, an offensive system when it comes down to it. Jokic is going to have a good time out there going in the post, in the paint. He's probably going to give you around 24 points a game this series and take Zubac out on the perimeter when it comes down to it. There's not enough trust on my part to see at the Nuggets or any weapons that can come through in the clutch and pretty much take over games and let alone shut down the Clippers. Clippers do have the experience with Kawhi Leonard that he's been consistent. He's been giving you around 33 points a game, especially in the first round. And I expect Kawhi to keep, turning it up all these series within here. I mean, Michael Porter Jr. is not going to be able to tame Kawhi Leonard the way we expect him to be at all. And Paul George, he's finally blossoming. The first round of the series, he was horrendous for the first 3 or 4 games or so. But Paul George is finally cranking up to be that second option Kawhi Leonard expected him to be when it came down to it. I don't expect too much for Zubac because he's going to be going against Jokic within this series. And not enough really on the bench side of things. Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell is going to have a great series. When it comes to the Denver Nuggets, there's not a lot of weapons out there. I think the Nuggets, they're going to have length. They're going to have the size, and they can take you down in the paint. A very interesting matchup. Paul Millsap and Marcus Morris. I don't see a lot of action going there, but if you're Paul Millsap, you have an opportunity to take on and score some points, be an X factor for this team. But overall, everyone's pretty much got the Clippers win the series, no doubt about it. I think the most the series could go would be 6 games. The least would be 5. I'm going to go with the Clippers winning the series in 6 games against the Denver Nuggets. Pretty entertaining series. Nothing too crazy about it. I think we're going to have a great consistent series with Kawhi Leonard. And with the Nuggets, probably for more of a Jokic type. I don't think Jamal Murray can be able to recreate 30, 40-point games this series, especially when you got Patrick Beverley on him and all that. And the Nuggets just overcame a fatigue Game 7. So let's see what happens. I got the Clippers in 6. Should be a pretty good series. Not the best, but it is what it is when it comes down to it.